All right, so joining me now is Michael Wilds, former federal prosecutor and former mayor of Englewood, New Jersey, with his thoughts on all of this. Michael, good evening. Good to have you here tonight.
Good evening, Martha. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Your take is slightly different on all of this. Tell us.
Well, this is the greatest experiment in democracy, and people will always want to come here time memoriam. President Reagan had the audacity to call it an amnesty, and nearly 30 years ago, we haven't had any immigration reform. We've had Band-Aids put literally on problems rather than treating this properly. We have such a political system. A Haitian can be interdicted on international waters, but a Cuban can get a green card if they hit dry land. And we have a homeland that is vulnerable. I don't think there is an immigration lawyer or an individual with a pulse in this country that wants to have a porous border. We are a system, a nation of laws, and we have yet 11+ million people unidentified in our nation. And Martha, we do not have enough handcuffs, airplanes, beds to detain, and the inclination to remove these individuals. And many of them are giving monies into our treasury. They're buying orange juice, and they are the greatest risk takers and entrepreneurs that we have historically known. So people can get frightened, like the guest you had on, and frighten viewers about this thing. But from my perspective, look, I'm a second-generation immigration lawyer. My dad got John Lennon a green card, and the scholarship and the jurisprudence of the whole deferred action, the prosecutorial discretion that the president will rest his hat on, evolved out of the Lennon case. We want John Lennons in this country. We bring the most fascinating stylists, photographers, and talent here, and they then employ Americans. Otherwise, we get marginalized.
What people want is for people to come here legally, to go through the process, to come here legally, to not pour in over the border, threaten some of the properties on the other side of the border. I mean, I think it's very easy to say that from where you're sitting, but you're not living in the border area where these people are being threatened, where their own livelihood and their own land is put in jeopardy time and time again, and where they feel like nobody's listening to them.
I felt this as a mayor because the resources are thin, and yes, it looks like Americans are going to be marginalized while foreigners come here, but you have to look at it differently. These are individuals that are doing work and will enfranchise greater employment. They will pick the berries in Georgia and the hospitality corridors.
I understand what you're saying, but what do you suggest? You want an expanded worker program? That's what the president is calling
Martha,
for, it would appear.
I want a comprehensive reform to this problem.
Including border security.
So we're not chasing this. You know, the whole argument, should we fix the borders first and then fix the problem here? We cannot afford to have 10 million plus people without an identity of who they are. We need, you know, we are the laughingstock of the world. Canada, Australia, they have point systems.
Yeah, but there are many places in the world that don't let anybody into their borders. Yeah. I mean, that think that we are the laughingstock of the world for specifically that reason, because we don't seem to have a border at all.
We need to have a border. I agree with everybody that our border is way too porous. Again, I used to deport people when I was with the U.S. Attorney's Office. We want the bad guys out, and we want to have an orderly system to have the good guys in. But we cannot scare people. And there isn't a person watching this who isn't an immigrant himself unless you're an American Indian. And if you appreciate that national heritage, you're going to look at an immigration as a great tool.
But it's a question of illegal versus illegal immigration. You're talking, of course, everybody came from somewhere else. Everybody did, except for the Native Americans, as you point out. But you're talking about legal versus illegal immigration.
Right now, I agree with you. We need to set up a legal system. What are we going to do with the people that are here? And what kind of legal system are we going to put in? Are we going to do something like President Reagan did? The last time there was reform, he did give amnesty, and he then started punishing employers to do immigration. We have a new normal right now. We have to make sure we pay this forward so that we're not chasing this argument 30 years from now. We need to set up an orderly system. And yes, that means our leaders, Democrats and Republicans, who are now given new trusts, have to make sure that they govern properly and fix new laws in the system. And yes, recognize that we may have to give status to people that are here.
Michael Wilds, thank you. We got to leave it there.